Inbox Zero is an approach to email where you try to clear out your inbox regularly. I know some people just have the inbox as an ever-expanding list of emails, and they use it both to store reminders and to-dos. And the goal is to get away from that. If you're new here, my name is Jarle, and on Early Owl, we learn how to declutter our mind by decluttering our life. I think there's a lot of hidden costs to so-called open loops. Basically, tasks or things you know you have to deal with, but that are just kind of lingering there and relying on you to get back to them whenever you feel like it. And the goal of Inbox Zero is more about just closing these loops than literally getting the inbox to 0 emails. But if you're doing this approach, then at least I find it's pretty easy to just get it down to 0. So that is what I do. Inbox Zero is one of the habits I try to maintain every day. So in this video, I'll go through why I do it and also how I do it. And at the end, I'll give some tips to get started if you have just a massive inbox of like 10,000 unread messages. So there's basically 3 main reasons why I think using an approach like Inbox Zero to email is a good idea. It comes down to reliability, attention, and stress. Obviously, if you're relying on email to kind of be aware of what you need to do and the email isn't very organized, then it's easy to miss things and it's easy to let things fall through the cracks. Having this sort of approach also has 2 impacts on your attention. First of all, if there's like a chance something is going to fall through the cracks, then you're going to have this background process running in your head just trying to make sure it doesn't. And the other one is that you feel this need to constantly check your email just to see what's going on there and see if there's anything you need to deal with that you've forgotten about. So if you ever find yourself checking your inbox and looking over emails that have already been read, then that's a pretty good sign that you need to get a better system in place for your emails. And lastly, with stress, it just comes down to if you don't have a system you know you can fully rely on, again, you're just kind of worried every so often that there is something you might have forgotten. I notice this quite clearly in myself if I'm not on top of my emails. Not only am I checking my email a lot more often just to see if there's anything there, especially if I then haven't checked the email for a little while, I'm like worried that there's built up an array of new emails on top of the already undealt with stuff that I have in there, and it just keeps on building. So how I use Inbox Zero is pretty simple, which I think is almost always the best way to start if you're implementing a new system like this. I just try to clear out the inbox once a day, and then I have like 4 different branches of things I can put it into. If it's something I need to deal with or I need to respond to, then obviously if I can just respond to it right away, I would do that. But if it's something I'm not doing right away, then I would just add it into my to-do list system where I use Todoist. If it's an email where I don't need to deal with it, but I want to have it easily available, then I'll store it in one of like several different inboxes I have. Like I have one for receipts, and I have one for tickets, and I have one for my accountant and taxes and stuff like that. And then I'll also create kind of temporary inboxes for dealing with specific projects where there's going to be a lot of emails. Like when I bought this apartment, there was a lot of emails back and forth with a bunch of different people. And then I had a separate inbox where I stored all of those emails. And lastly, it's just archive or delete. Another thing you should do if you're trying to clean up your inbox like this is to, whenever you get an email from like a newsletter or some company you don't care about or whatever, you should unsubscribe to that email list, because the goal is not just to clean up the inbox, it's also to reduce what's coming in. If you've never had an inbox organization system before and your inbox is anything like what mine was, then there's probably a decent chance that you have somewhere between like tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of unread emails. And it might seem a bit daunting to try to tackle this, but at least when I did it the first time, it really wasn't that hard. One way to do it, which might be an okay approach for a lot of people, is just to do the scorched earth approach of just deleting everything. I think we are a bit too anxious about things we might be deleting that might be important sometime in the future, but really isn't. So I think if I had done that, if I had just deleted every single email, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. But the slightly more careful way to do it is just to go by sender. So you go through your inbox one by one, and then if it's from a sender where you might care about the emails they've sent, then you just archive it into some other inbox. Or if it's from a sender that has just sent you a bunch of spams because you signed up to their website once, then you just find every email from that person and you delete it. With this approach, you can probably delete thousands of emails in one go, because even if there are tens of thousands of emails in your inbox, most of them probably just come from a few different sources. So by tackling it by sender, it becomes much more manageable. And again, when doing this, obviously you want to unsubscribe to everything you see that is not of interest to you. And you probably should be a bit more harsh on this than you feel like. Like I notice I probably should be that, because I do have like creators or people that I care about, where it's like, I feel like what they make is interesting. So I've signed up to their newsletter and I feel bad about unsigning from it, but I still just never read these emails. So if I never read them, I shouldn't have them. So that is how I approach Inbox Zero. And it's something I try to do as one of my habits every day. I made a video about the different daily habits I have here, so you can check that out. And I've also made a video about Cal Newport's book, A World Without Email. So especially, I think if you're a person who has a lot of email in your life, then this book is well worth checking out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday.